This is a good picture. Here you can see sort of the sequential development going through the stages of follicular development. At day 14 in our perfect cycle, here is ovulation. But here's the important thing to remember. All of this structure which was contained in the oocyte remains behind and forms a temporary, although sometimes not that temporary, a temporary structure called the yellow body, the corpus luteum. This is a very important structure, especially if the egg is fertilized, because as you'll see in a moment, this is a temporary endocrine organ which produces estrogen and progesterone. And if the egg is fertilized and it plants in the wall of the uterus, those two hormones are necessary for the continuing development of the fertilized egg. If this thing shuts down prematurely, then you get a miscarriage. But we'll see how that works in just a minute. Go ahead.
How come, I know, when women are trying to have babies, they say it's best to try when they're ovulating. Why is it?
Okay, ovulation. So here's the deal. Here's Michael's question. I was gonna touch on this anyway. So ovulation is the egg leaves the ovary. Okay, it's on its way. Now, if you're trying to have a baby, right, and a woman is pretty predictable in terms of her cycle, right? She knows that she always ovulates on day whatever, of the cycle, day 14 or 15 or whatever it is of the cycle. Then, see, the egg's on its way. So get on the phone, say, okay, I know I just ovulated, right? Because now we can predict it with little urine dipsticks. We want to have a baby, so get home, let's have sex because, the egg's on its way. Don't be late, right? So it's there. It's ready to be fertilized. Now, the old days, ovulation, sometimes women are unpredictable. Well, I didn't mean that how it sounded, ladies. I know that sounded bad. Unpredictable in terms of when they ovulate, right? Not every cycle is 28 days. And so in the old days, you could use a very accurate thermometer to measure a slight 2 or 3/10 of a degree body temperature increase, which happens at ovulation. Well, nowadays we can predict it with a urine dipstick because you'll see in a minute there's an increase in a hormone, which can be predicted. So if you see this increase in hormone, it's like, okay, I just ovulated. It's time to, do what we want to do, have a baby, right? So if you can predict ovulation, you can predict, if you want to have a baby, when to have sex. But to turn that around, now I'm being recorded, but to turn that around, you could also predict it as a time not to have sex. Although that's highly unpredictable regardless. So anyway, so day 14 of our ovarian cycle, there's a surge in LH, which is what we measure on the dipstick these days, right? Pregnancy and hormones. LH is released, or LH surges, and the oocyte is released. Now, everything else stays behind and forms the corpus luteum, which is a temporary endocrine organ. It lasts for at least the rest of the cycle, another 14 days. But if the egg is fertilized, as you'll see in a moment, the corpus luteum remains active for 3 months, producing estrogen and progesterone to maintain the lining of the uterus for the developing embryo. Yeah, Patrick.
What's the earliest point that the egg could be fertilized?
Assuming an accurate 14-day or an accurate 28-day cycle, and day 14 is ovulation.
And where would that happen?
What?
And where would that fertilization take
I'll
place?
show you.
Okay.
It's in the next slide. So in theory, it could happen on day 14. And you'll see why in just a second.
But it has to leave the follicle first.
Yes, it has to leave the ovary.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll show you the picture in just a second where this happens. So anyway, so here's our corpus luteum. I'll show you a picture of it. It's not very interesting. So after day 14, a new part of the cycle begins. It's called the luteal phase. And this involves the corpus luteum and also the uterus, and the lining of the uterus. And we'll talk about menstrual cycles here in just a second. So ovulation is day 14. The egg's on its way. It may be fertilized, it may not be fertilized. And we'll answer Patrick's question here in just a second. But let's do the corpus luteum first because you need to understand what happens here. The corpus luteum is a temporary organ which remains behind in the ovary. It produces primarily progesterone, but also estrogen. And reason for that is if the egg is fertilized, and we'll get to where in just a minute, the lining of the uterus, which is ready to receive a fertilized egg every month, right, has to be maintained because the embryo is now developing. The corpus luteum, through the secretion of these two hormones, assures that will happen. But the way you predict pregnancy, or the way you verify pregnancy, very simply, is you measure this hormone, HCG. HCG is not present in your body unless there is a fertilized egg implanted in the wall of the uterus. As soon as this egg implants, HCG is secreted. And it's measurable by little urine dipsticks, the things you buy at the drugstore, very quickly and very accurately. Right? It's like a smiley face or pink or whatever. I mean, I don't know what it is. Right? So, but let's say the egg is not fertilized. And most of the time it's not. Right? The egg is not fertilized. It just passes out of the body. Right? It doesn't implant in the wall of the uterus. There's no HCG secreted. Right? So what happens is the corpus luteum just is reabsorbed by the ovary. It becomes something called the corpus albicans. It's reabsorbed by the ovary. These hormones are not produced, and the wall, as you'll see in a minute, the endometrial lining of the uterus is shed, and that's your menstrual period. And so it's all tightly coordinated with both the ovaries and the uterus. So if you get fertilization, HCG is secreted. It stands for human chorionic gonadotropin, which nobody can remember, right? And that's how it works. Yes, Francis.
You know how they have those like IUDs and stuff?
Yeah.
You get your period like 3 times a month, but
Yep.
none for 5 years.
Yep.
Where does all that stuff go?
It doesn't go anywhere. You just don't do it. It's like you can get birth control that will last 3 months or a year or something like that. So it places your body in a cycle where you just don't have menstrual periods. And for some women, that's a plus because some women have very severe menstrual periods, and so you can get hormones like under the implanted under the skin or things like that, which just will prevent. In essence, it's kind of. I know this is going to sound funny, but it's like you're pregnant, but you're not.
How it tricks your body to be.
Yeah, exactly. More or less. That's the easiest way to explain it. So you're not going to have a period because when you're pregnant, you don't have a period.
So it's not like.
I know, yeah, I know that's not completely accurate, but sometimes you get spotting and things like that. But anyway, so now I got a bunch of questions here. So go ahead, Patrick. Then we
I was just gonna touch on HCG a little bit
Yeah.
further, and that some women are, you said, tricking your body into acting like it's pregnant, are using that for dieting. They're using liquid HCG with certain dieting, and it's tricking the body into thinking it's pregnant, and it's causing rapid weight loss because they're not intaking the right amount of food for when
that
you're
sounds dangerous.
pregnant, and it's a rapid weight loss.
I think it gets
If it's monitored with the right kind of food, and if you diet correctly with it, it's actually really effective and can be safe, I guess. I don't know. I don't. Yeah.
Me neither.
Doesn't this cycle have something to do with cleaning out the system too? Like,
A little bit.
I thought it had maybe more of a role in it, and I was like people that got like 5 years birth control and they're not having